It's a great pleasure to present you the curators of the Brazilian Pavilion in Biennale di Venezia, Guilherme Assange, Luciana Saboia. They will present you the main topics about the contents of the pavilion for this year. Thanks a lot for coming, and it's up to you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. The meaning of the exposition is to think how architecture, which lessons we can learn from architecture in this relationship between nature and culture. So the exposition is divided in two acts. The first act, everything are like constructed in wood, that are panels of wood that is grounded, and everything is recyclable and can be reused in different ways. And we think that it looks to our past in a new narrative of our ancestrality in these archaeological sites, that you go through the mapping and how this interaction between nature and landscape in the infrastructure, natural infrastructure like rivers, trees, they connect with human settlements. So there is a huge population that was in a huge flux of circulation in the forest. So we used to say that human are the forest, and the forest made the human condition. So once you have that, you go to the second room, that instead of everything under compression, it's opposite. Everything's going to be suspended in the new way of looking at the future, but it's a future of the present that look at the strategies of existing projects and conditions and process that's going on right now in Brazil. And maybe Guilherme can talk about those strategies that we have in the second room.
Yeah, the specificity of this exhibition is not really an exhibition about projects and architecture itself, but it's about research on projects, on strategies that can be drawn out from projects, from many kinds of architects from different years in, I would say, the last 50 years in Brazil. And the idea is not, and it's also important to say, we are not really the main curators. We're a kind of collective team, because this is part of the proposal that the exhibition is showing up research from many parts of Brazil. And the strategies that we are focusing on, they are targeting three axes, three main areas of interest. The first one is the appropriation of former popular knowledge that can be understood as a project nowadays. And this is a kind of learning from kind of approach. The second one is about the open structure, is infrastructure understood as understanding the project as a strategy for openness and the indeterminacy, or how you can integrate and anticipate things that cannot be really anticipated in the project. So project that can evolve programmatically very differently over time. And the third axis is about the way you can recycle former inventions. And so that's why they're all talking about reinventions. And the third one is really interesting because it's about taking over former projects that can then be recycled and understood as in new ways. And this is all about reinventing the already invented projects. So they are altogether 12 projects that are talking about those three ways of understanding, and sometimes they are mixed up to make a more complex understanding.
Which is the attitude about the intervene on the existent? I mean, if I well understood, there are different strategies in intervention in the existent. and some of them are at the level of the infrastructure, so it's sort of a relation in between the things, and in some other situation are more related to some specific object of architecture up to some specific building. So which is the general idea in the different scales of intervention?
Yeah, the general idea is to really the key word is reinvention. That's the main subject of the exhibition. So it's all about how to go back to former understandings of the city and architecture, and reinventing nowadays uh, in face of new challenges. So that's why the projects cover different scales, from very detailed pathways through the favelas, for example, but they are designed from the very beginning to the territorial scale, when we talk about the forest in Rio, for example. So infrastructure in different kinds of scales.
And another thing, it's kind of open a debate through drawing, because drawing's a kind of our universal language.
Sure.
And looking at drawings, not just a kind of representation, but it's a kind of a reflection. So open a kind of black box and draw the strategy to see not the postcard of those beautiful projects, but see how elements, constructive elements that assemble together can make a diversity of specialities with few elements. So go back to a kind of essence of how architecture, structure and infrastructure can construct the landscape in a very precise way.
Well, this is super fascinating. And how do you lead with the going back to the original or at the starting point? I mean, which are the tools you used in order as a starting point?
Starting point was not represent the building. That's why it didn't really show the pictures of it and all the historical context and everything. It's not that's not important, even the authorships of the projects, but really look at a constructive element, what we can assemble the pieces, the elements, and how they deal with the landscape, with the topography.
Sure.
How you see a kind of see infrastructure as a condition of life. That's a sistema, but it's also a structure that we have elements that put together and make a new things in debate. We are not going to give answers through this strategy, but we want to open the debate about how can architecture matters to mitigate climate change, social difference that we have, particularly in rapid urbanization in global south, and also ambiental impact.
Yeah, the titles of the strategies are key for that understanding, because that's the main idea. It's not presenting projects, but strategies from the projects. So the inventing or reinventing the names of the strategies was part of the strategies for the exhibition.
Yes, sure.
That's why some names look like strange, because sometimes or many times when we look at something, we need words to designate.
Sure.
No?
Sure.
So that's part of the attempt of taxonomy about like the current challenges and how architecture could answer to that.
And going through the exposition, I saw that at a certain time you talk about the climatic section of the building, the sense of a way of reading and understanding construction related to architecture. So could you tell something more about it?
This is very exciting, because when we look at those projects, the idea is not, again, to show the project itself, but understanding the concepts that are behind, that were somehow involved in the process of designing the project. And this is very important, because so as we can go back and look at our heritage from modern to whatever, and take from that a different point of view.
Sure.
So understanding that those strategies, and this is specifically to the climatic section, one of these strategies, that is talking about that close relationship between space, structure, and device that are planned to kind of control or navigate or adapt the building to the conditions of the climatic conditions. And I think this is a very contemporary problem, issue.
And to close, maybe, which is your position on the Brazilian heritage, in the sense of we as European assume Brazilian culture in architecture incredible, huge, fantastic. The problem is that it's not so well known, it's not probably so well told. And which is your attitude in order to understand, going deeper in a critical way, and to spread around the world how incredible is this kind of
I think
heritage?
the key word particularly relates to this curatorial team about the relationship with natural and artificial. It's adaptation. It adds two different meanings, very striking. Adaptation, that you turn into something that you cannot control, but adaptation in the sense of reinventing in a very creative way, because sometimes the resource are very light condition. The condition sometimes is very fragile, so we have to deal with this. And also from this we have a great opportunity to look at the past, not something that's gone or doesn't live anymore, but to learn from that in the very practical way at the human phenomenon.
Keep them alive.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the point.
So it's a kind of an architecture of a hope, not the hope that's distant and far away, but in a very optimistic way of that architecture can matters.
And not also a nostalgic
Yeah,
approach
exactly.
to the past. No?
That's the point.
And we made a very, I would say, useful research on Brasilia, because Luciana is teaching and working in Brasilia. And it was really striking for us to look at Brasilia from another point of view that will not be the same history of modern architecture in
Tectonic
urbanism.
of Brasilia.
Yeah, and how then take Brasilia not for granted, but take it as a really strong and powerful way of looking through and beyond what is like just the first glimpse, no? And that's the complexity. And I
Exactly.
totally understand that Brazilian architecture is somehow not very well known from abroad, but even when it's well known, there is a tricky
Yeah.
thing going on.
Not well understood.
Yes, exactly.
That's the point.
Exactly.
Okay.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you so
very
much. It was really a pleasure.